Okay. Hey, stories. Leadership stories. Well, aside from leadership stories right now, when I think of stories, the first thing that I remember is my grandmother. White hair grandmother. And typical grandmother. And we'd come to her house, and there'd be my brother and my sister. And Grandma, of course, would have treats and a lot of things to eat all around the house and candies. But more importantly, what was fun about going to Grandma's house is it was like, Grandma, tell me a story. My grandmother was a wealth of family history stories. History going way back into the Civil War time period. And she would tell my brother and my sister and myself especially, and we would just be riveted to these stories. The story about her grandmother holding on to a skittish colt on a trolley raft going across the Missouri River in Atchison, Kansas, and how the colt was going to tip the raft over, and how she, as a young girl, had to keep that colt calm until they got to the other side. And I could just see it in her eyes, and I don't think she tried to be a storyteller. She just was a storyteller, and I could see her relive it, and in turn, the people listening could relive it. But this is not about grandma stories. This is about leadership stories. And there's a couple of people that have been impressed upon me, or have been, mentors, or have done some mentoring for me that in my career that I want to pass on. First job out of college, wet behind the ears, and I'm going to be this salesperson. So I look for this position, and I put resumes out, and I get hired at this Kansas City liquor and wine wholesale company. I mean, this is the biggest company in Kansas City. We had all of the name brands of liquor and wine, and I got the interview, and I got the job, but I wasn't a salesperson. I was a merchandising person, and merchandising was the stepping stone position that everybody would naturally start out at, and that's what I did. Is I was merchandising, and I was paying my dues and working, and there was an individual. There was several sales managers, but this one sales manager name was Joe. And Joe was one of those people in the hallway that if I could avoid it, I would avoid Joe, because Joe just was, he'd always ask questions. Dale, what are you doing today? And I would tell him what I'm doing. Well, did you get that done? Well, no. Well, are you going to do it tomorrow? And he just would just be on top of what I was doing and what I had gotten accomplished and what my plans were for tomorrow. And I didn't mind answering those questions, but it was just like I knew I was going to get that kind of communication with him. And so if there was a chance in the hallway to avoid Joe, I would avoid Joe. But I still wanted this sales position. And one day I got my shot, and there was 3 sales managers. And the position that came available on Joe's team. And the position wasn't a full-time position. It was just a situation where the normal salesperson was in the hospital for a week, and they needed somebody to fill in for him on his route. So I was going to get a chance to go from the minor leagues to the major leagues, a sales route in Kansas City, one of the best sales routes. And I was going to be talking to a lot of customers and clients of our company. And for a week, I was going to fill in for the salesperson. So to me, this was my shot to step up, to put on a shirt and tie, and do what I had gone to college to do, and take my marketing degree, and really use my skills, develop my skills as a salesperson. And the day before I start, Joe calls me into my office. Now, Joe was the kind of office where you would go into it and you wouldn't just sit down unless you were invited to sit down. So I'm standing up here, you know. Yes, Joe. And he says, Dale, I want to tell you something. If anything goes wrong out there, if something goes wrong and you do something or a mistake happens, I want you to come to me first. I want you to come to me and tell me what happened. Oh, yeah. No, of course. Yes, sir, I'll do that. No, he says, no, Dale, no, I don't think you understand. And he leans forward. He says, Dale, look at me. If anything goes wrong out there, you break something, you steal something, you lose something, you make a mistake with the money, you damage a company property, Dale, you come to me first. You come to me, and I will with you, I'll back you, and I will take you with me to the top, and I will stand beside you the whole way. I've got your back. Do you understand what I'm saying, Dale? What else could you say? Well, from that moment on, I felt different about Joe because now I'm on the inside of Joe's team. Joe had my six. Joe was somebody that I didn't want to let down. I knew that he had my back. I had a safe area to work in. I knew that I could not fail because I had Joe keeping an eye on me, and I couldn't just make a big mistake, which is what I was terrified of, possibly making a big mistake and making a fool of myself. But Joe wasn't going to let that happen. Joe was going to stand beside me and take me and move me forward. I loved it. It was a great opportunity. Ultimately, I got into sales with a different sales manager and had a short stint there at sales, and that's a whole other story. But I think there's another person, though, in my career and my leadership, maybe who have taught me some things about leadership that I want to pass on to another person. That would be this person. His name is Ron, and I met Ron at a time when I was unemployed. I didn't have a position, and since I grew up in a construction family, I knew how to work. I knew how to build and work with tools. And I got to working with Ron, and Ron was a person who had several rental properties in Kansas City. I mean, several apartments, and he was doing the renovation and doing the cleanup after tenants would leave, and I had a chance to go with him on one of these apartment cleanouts, and he worked side by side with me. But what was nice about Ron, or what I learned from Ron, is Ron took the time to tell me where his mind was with what he was trying to create here with these rentals. He talked about, gosh, I remember when I bought this building, and I was a little nervous about buying it because it's a large debt payment, and I would need to keep it occupied to be able to pay off that debt. And I've been doing my best to keep it full and occupancy up. And I know if I do all the work myself, it does save on money. So, but Ron would just tell me where his heart was, where his mind was, what he was trying to accomplish, and that he'd say, this is the 20th, and we want to get this apartment ready to be rent ready by the 1st, and he would just go through this with me so that I not only had the direction from him of, Dale, I want you to do A, B, and C today, but I also knew, and that's what I would want to pass on to another person who's listening to this, is that I knew why. I knew the hope that he had. I knew the direction that he wanted, or the goal that he wanted to accomplish. So that I felt like I was part of this with him. And I knew that he was interested in me, and after knowing his story, became interested in him, so I want to do my best for him. We work best with people that we know and that we have relationships with. And I would think that being a leader is really more about making relationships and relationships that not relationships for the sake of relationships, but relationships because you really do connect with that person. Work at connecting with people. Not what you can get from them, but just get to know them. Take a time out of your busy day to say hello, to say good morning, to bring them into your arena, let them know your thoughts, let them know what your heart is thinking, let them know your worries, let them know your motivations, let them know what you want to accomplish. And then someday you'll be looking around, somebody's going to call you boss. Somebody's going to call you a leader, and you're going to go, what? Leader? Well, that's some leadership stories. Talk to you later. Thanks.